much love to the music. It gets much respect. Can you dig it?
And here we are. Same place, same time. And you know who I am. Michael P. America. And I'm so glad that you guys are watching. And I've been getting a lot of responses from the last couple of shows, which tells me that people are very interested in the things that I have to say. And that's good because we need to save our democracy. You know, this is real. What's happening, this is not a dream. This is not wait till the, next time you vote. This is none of that. This is you have to be all hands on deck right now. You can see up top, you see that, Trump versus American democracy. And we've kind of been doing a Minnesota series because really Minnesota is ground zero for Trump's war on America democracy. And you got to remember that his organization, all the people affiliated with him, including his real handlers, they like spectacle. And we have a lot of spectacle. And you hear me talking about spectacle. And the reason I'm doing that is that you can create so many fires which becomes spectacle. And you even listen to a lot of things that he says, and he's very hyperbolic, especially when he lies, which is about 99.9% of the time. He's hyperbolic, and he loves that fear. He loves press those buttons, but mainly he couldn't tell you the truth, if he wanted to, because that's just not who he is. And his whole thing, just like Adolf Hitler and all the Nazis and the folks who've been trying to usher in the Fourth Reich here, they want to tell you a lie and just have you repeat it. It's all about repeating the lie. It has nothing to do with the truth. The truth is that they're very rotten players. The truth is that America, like many other countries, has too often allowed corruption to just boil over. And especially when you talk about European nations, you can see the corruption by the hatred, the vitriol towards folks who aren't white. And it's the same thing think about when Malcolm X got in trouble for saying, this was after the Kennedy assassination, he's saying the chickens come home to roost. And the reason why he said that was, part of it may have been slightly prophetic, but the other part was that he had an understanding that Kennedy was killed by his own. Okay? There's no, one bad guy out there. There's a whole bunch of bad players in the organization that was angry at the Kennedy brothers because they helped these guys get into power. And then Kennedys decided they wanted to be good guys. These other guys were like, no. So anyway, we've already had that conversation. We talked about that. Minneapolis, Minnesota, St. Paul, Minnesota, the Twin Cities. Okay? Yeah, I have a history. Lived most of my life there. Well, the earlier part of my life. In Minneapolis, Minnesota. Left in my 30s. part of the music and entertainment scene there. But I did a lot of other stuff. I worked for many other corporations. As an artist, you tend to have more jobs and you get more insight into how things actually run because you've seen more things. Because as much as people love to hear music and they love film, the average person doesn't relate to the artist. The artist has to do things that actually will relate to the average person. And artists at the end of the day are just average people, even though some of them, their head gets blown up and they start getting attention and they start driving themselves off the cliff. Okay, it's kind of like that James Bond movie, When the World's Not Enough. Well, that doesn't just happen to artists, it happens to everybody. And we're watching it right now. The issue with Trump and ICE is real simple. These aren't accidental deaths. These aren't murders. These are executions. These are all spectacle. They're done intentionally. There's so much information out there where you can see all the different angles that people are just outright, well, ICE is just outright executing people in plain sight. So this goes along with Trump's comment on Fifth Avenue where I can murder somebody and still get elected. Okay, yeah, he could get elected because the powers that be wanted him in office and they want all of this happening. And I've gone over why, so you're just going to have to watch all the other episodes. But we lost another in Minnesota, and not saying that, these are the only ones, but these stand out because they're executing white people in plain sight, and they're trying to get all white people to believe, well, it's not an execution, it was accidental, and blah, 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 blah. Now, when we lost Renee Good, I took all the angles, all the footage, and I showed you all the different angles. It was easy to see that they executed her. Two things that this most recent one, which is Alex Preddy and Renee Good have in common, was that they had encounters with them before they executed them. Okay? They're executing and they're killing and they're coming out and attacking American cities, and mainly the cities that wouldn't vote for Trump. And I can't understand the Supreme Court on this. I do get it, but the optics look bad for the Supreme Court. The optics look bad for Congress. The optics look bad for the Senate. And, Trump, he doesn't care about bad optics. Okay, this is the grab him by the pussy president. Okay? This is Jeffrey Epstein's buddy, and I'm assuming that the reason why Epstein and Trump remained friends for so long is that Epstein gave Trump everything that he needed, and the other side of Epstein was, the CIA and the Mossad. So I'm sure that there's so much information on Donald Trump. The Epstein files is going to be a slow burn. And by the time you get to what he really did, because we already know that there were cases that were thrown out, the rape cases and all of that, because people were getting death threats, and it's like, well, maybe there's some money in there, and they're saying take the money or die. Maybe I'm sure there was some tampering going on in regards to their cases. It was obvious because Trump was accused, and then they froze all his cases until he got elected, and then somebody came up with this BS saying that you can't try a sitting president. Well, I'm assuming you wouldn't be able to try a sitting president if he did things for the nation, not things for himself. So the interpretation there is a mess, and for people to buy into it, I'm not a lawyer. I would think folks that know the law would have figured that out. If he's, I'm going to say allegedly, because we're never going to get the full skinny because the accusers back down. But, if he was, raping and screwing, this young girl and these women, that has nothing to do with the nation. But they told you a sitting president can't face prosecution because he's a sitting president. But my guess is that that would only be if it had anything to do with the country. Him having sex with, minors and whatever, allegedly, wouldn't have nothing to do with the country except for his own crazy little tics. And if Epstein was part of the Mossad and the CIA, sure Netanyahu got the skinny, and those two are thick as thieves. Netanyahu is trying to escape prosecution. And, oh yeah, peace treaty, they're still killing folks in Gaza. Do you want to continuously believe the lie? They are lying to you, okay? They are lying. They are lying to you. So you need to understand something, that this is all a lie. This is all a strategy. Right now what's happening is that our armed forces have been in Venezuela. Our armed forces are looking at Iran. And do you know why they're out there? Tell you why they're out there. They're wagging the dog, but not declaring war. They're strikes. They are wagging the dog. The reason that they're wagging the dog is that our military is away from the country. And so he's going to launch all kinds of assaults on the United States while they're away. He's keeping them busy. Where did he learn this? The Bushes. And the Bushes are the reason, the very reason, we have Donald Trump. Okay, yeah, that's the truth. So, let's get back to Minneapolis, St. Paul, and Alex Preddy. Alex Preddy, just like Renee Good, was executed. It's all on camera. It's all very obvious. The media outlets, the popular ones, the rich ones, will not come out and say that. They don't even want to tell you what you're witnessing is a civil war. You are witnessing a civil war. Right now, they are out there buying up property because they're going to have internment camps. I know they're going to tell you, well, it's to hold illegals. No, it's not. He's going after everybody that he considers his enemy, which is everyone who didn't vote for him. And he's got his apartheid buddy, Elon Musk, who got out of South Africa and he came over here to screw our democracy. And I can't believe you're buying stuff from this guy and he's got government contracts. America, how stupid can you be? Here's the other part. You guys are spending money with people who are against your democracy, your freedom, and your interests. You need to knock it off. Stop fattening them up. They're already taking your tax money. He's cut all the programs in government that protect your civil liberties and your civil rights. And he's taking your tax money and he's giving it to all his billionaire guys. You guys got to get smart. The one thing that I will say is that Minnesota, I'm pretty proud of them right now. You're always kind of proud of where you've come from anyway. I'm a tale of two cities, Waterloo, Iowa, and the Twin Cities. That's me, because I lived in both of them simultaneously. As I was growing up, I lived in both of them. And so, yes, both of those states, Minnesota and Iowa, have their challenges, especially when it comes to race. They always have, but everywhere in the country, you have those challenges. But I believe to some capacity that Minnesota was really on a breakthrough. As long as you have Chuck Grassley for Iowa, it's always going to be the worst thing you ever saw. It just tells you they're still in the Stone Age, because Chuck Grassley is definitely Stone Age. Okay? Iowa needs to dump him like a venereal disease. I will tell you that right now. But they got to get through it. Just tells you how bad the racism still is in Iowa. That's another conversation. Alex Preddy was executed like Renee Good. Alex Preddy, who was taking care of our veterans. Remember, Trump hates losers. He hates people that comes home injured from war. Can't believe anybody with half a brain supports somebody with a third grade mentality. And then They gave him the keys, the code to the nuclear weapons. This is arguably the most powerful kingdom of all time. I'm sure China has something to say about it. Russia, you got nothing. Yeah, we know that you have nukes and whatever, but you're not quite there. Now, China is a whole different animal. And that's why you have these monks who are, walking 2,000 miles for peace. They're not being bothered by ICE. Don't want to mess with China that way. Think about that. There's no Christians out there walking with them, these so-called phony, fake Trump Christians. That's all right. So they disrupted a church service? No, they did not disrupt the service. The service was over with, and then they started their Q&A and partial protest. And then you are arresting reporters, not like black reporters and reporters of color that you decide to go after. And, where were you? They've been bombing black churches and shooting, black churchgoers. And all of a sudden you care because somebody found your little, ice pick misleading people. And now you're upset because they're exposed. These churches exist all over the United States, by the way. The white Christian nationalists who I have no idea what Bible they're reading. I'm sure they're making it up as they go. They're out there. But we'll get back to Alex Preddy because I'm really ticked off that we're seeing executions and nobody's really calling them what they really are. And I know after I'm done with this, oh yeah, you guys will start talking about this. Because first of all, if you go to Trump's sites, they're talking about civil war. That's all they're saying. This is a civil war. This is a civil war. They're saying this. Okay, so Trump's people, his MAGA people, and whatever else he's got, his white nationalists, his Nazi, his Klan, the devil's brood, they're all claiming this is civil war. Now, this is rhetoric that we've been listening to as black people forever. Why? Because they've always been trying to push the civil war, the Klan, the Nazis, and then you get the Christian nationalists who want the apocalypse because they think they can force Jesus to come. And I'm going, Jesus ain't going to want you. You've already rejected yourself by doing everything he told you not to do. But all this hatred and vitriol. And then, if you're not a believer, you still want to throw away your best chance at democracy all over the world. We could change a lot of things if we would just do the right things. We could solve so many things, but that's not what the devil wants. The devil wants chaos and spectacle. And there's a bunch of morons that are willing to entertain it and give it to them. The wealthy want to carve up the globe, so this democracy falls. Their empires, and they're global. These billionaires are global. So their empires, they're basically kings without a realm. We have to really start thinking about our democracy. You can't sit on the couch anymore and just watch it all on TV. Because I guarantee you, they're coming for everybody. Ask the Nazis, they came for everybody. And now you've got like Palantir, who's in technology, is aiding Donald Trump and his brood so that they can track everybody and everything. So he's not going to be too far on the tech. He's been grifting. He's got billions of dollars just in, going into his second year of his of this term. He's made so much money for himself, and he's paying everybody else. Even, in my opinion, the most sinister presidents didn't do it like this. Well, I take that back. You got to learn from the Bushes. They went after that oil. Him and Cheney went after that oil. I'm sorry, Liz Cheney, but your dad was knee deep in the hoopla with that, and you know it. And so it's really tough when America plays footsie with the corrupt and they try to justify it. We can't. Matter of fact, all countries and nations fall from within. And we've been seeing that. Okay. So one of the other things that I want to do is that I got to go through Alex Preddy. But I got this thing on Renee Good, and you got to see this. Okay, I mean, this tells you she was executed. This is a statement. So check this out.
So what do you do now? So I told him, listen, why did you guys gun down? He said, what woman? There was no empathy on his face. And then they made a joke that's very disgusting. Some of his officers saying, why did they have to do the head like that? Making fun of how Jonathan Ross shot down Renee Good. And that made me even more angry, but I couldn't do much because of the overwhelming force they had around me. You know, there's so many officers, over 10, surrounding me from every side, and I had my back to my car. You know, so I continued to record. I continued to record because I was like, this, even if I end up losing my life, this is going to show people that the law enforcement is getting used in a very weird way to dehumanize people.
All right, so you heard what he said, okay? He's letting you know that they thought it was a joke, that they shot her in the head. They thought it was funny. And I told you before they shot her, they called her a fucking bitch. When they shot her, and she crashed, once again, they called her a fucking bitch. There was no remorse. There was no concern. They killed her in cold blood. She was targeted. And they're doing this all over. When you start looking at the Alex Preddy recordings, what you're going to find out is that, one, that in both cases when there was a series of shots that were fired into his body, the first one, the guy walked into it after they took the weapon. And then they yelled gun as if they were Secret Service and the guy actually had a gun. They already had secured Alex Preddy's firearm, which was really in the back of his pants. He never pulled it. He never had any intention to do it. Even the first incident that he had with him, which was I think a week or 2 weeks before that, he never pulled out his gun. There was nothing. Now these idiots, they're pulling out their guns and firing like premature ejaculation. They can't help themselves. These guys are not psychologically fit to be law enforcement. It's quite obvious. And I know that there's a bunch of those insurrectionist guys and that got pardoned by Trump and these racist militias that are all taking part. So here's the other part. Trump wanted to bring in National Guard from other states. And I'm going, you know, that looks like you're trying to dissolve the United States. That you're creating an event where states will succeed. Okay? Because now you're making states war with other states. So remember, guys, this is a civil war. And they are executing people right in front of you. I mean, ultimately, people of color, black folks, they want us. We know where all that's going. And it's headed there. So, you know, the people that are arresting the black journalists, they're going after them. You know, because the racist people hate it when black folks have something to say. Fulton County in Georgia. They just stole a whole bunch of ballots from the 2020 election. Not telling anybody really why they're doing it, where they're taking them. So really that stuff is no good. And what are you going to do? Because that election's already over with and it's been gone through with a, you know, fine comb, you know. Or a fine tooth comb if you want to get exact. They can make up stuff, which they will because that's all they do is make up stuff. All right? This is a civil war. Trump has launched a civil war against his own country. Okay? You have a president who is a domestic terrorist. Really, he is. And everybody's been saying that. So I didn't make that up. It is time to come out in mass all over the country to get him out of the White House because we won't make it through this if we don't. We will not. Then he's got his apartheid PayPal mafia buddies, mainly his favorite, Elon Musk, who's probably blown all kinds of hot smoke in this guy's head about, I can do this and I can do that for you and blah, blah, blah. We already know he's a white nationalist supremacist. He's all about it. He's trying to say, oh, no, white men are going to be erased. And like, you moron, you guys are killing more. You're killing everybody, including yourselves. I mean, yeah, you know, it's taken a long time to get, you know, people of color to kill themselves. And anytime you introduce poverty and oppression, folks just start to lash out to, you know, what's next to them. But all of these little privileged crybabies talking about, you know, minorities are taking stuff. And you belong to a group that has been stealing and killing and maiming and raping men, women, and children for centuries. And in other words, it's been your warfare against the world. You got people right now, they're just happy with a place to stay and something to eat. You guys are like, nope, you need to suffer. Why? Because I don't like you. Or because I'm suffering inside, so I need to see it physically manifest. There's no humanity in any of this. Originally, when Trump was going after immigrants, you saw the same kind of stuff. We'll just throw everybody in cages, and we're going to throw kids in cages. Didn't care about families, didn't have any mercy for people suffering, no humanity, just total brutality. And so what you have right now is all the barbarians that are in charge, and they're the mindless barbarians. The only thing that they can do is kill, steal, and destroy. And the guys that are stealing are the ones on top. The guys that are destroying are the ones that are expendable. But we already know that life and death, the power is in the tongue. So the guys that are stealing are just, you know, dumbing everybody down and vexing the morons and creating fear and putting them out there. And it's like, hey, you know, the world says you don't count, so here's a gun, go out and get even. That's what we're seeing with Trump's private army. And that's the other thing. All this money that's going to ICE, he's building his own private army because he ain't going anywhere. He doesn't care. It's like he's going to have his own private army. He's paying people more money than they ever had before. And they're being fed all this ridiculous rhetoric that they're going to drink it down until it all turns on them. But in the meantime, they're just going to destroy anything and everybody because that's what they do. That's what they're into. All right, I'm going to speed this up because I could be at this, you know, all night in regards to what we're seeing. You are witnessing a civil war. You are witnessing executions. You are witnessing the weaponization of the United States government against its people. You are also witnessing grifting right before our eyes. You keep repeating the lies, they got you. Call a thing for what it really is, because the truth is the only way that we're going to knock this out. Okay? All right, so Renee Good was executed. Listen to this.
Just weeks into the new year, the Trump administration has surged ICE agents to American cities, overthrown a foreign head of state, threatened a military takeover of Greenland, and rewritten the history of January 6th. As Liz Landers reports, the administration has rolled out a campaign across departments that draws on images and ideas borrowed from right-wing and white nationalist circles.
So that's kind of a little progress report in regards to what your president has been up to. And man, does he have an F- in regards to controlling the executive branch. All these things. But guess what? He's not doing it by himself. The Supreme Court is working with him. Congress is working with him. The Senate. Oh, they're all compromised. Think about this. Congress, Senate, the executive branch, and the Supreme Court, all compromised. So what would the people have left? Themselves and the military. And where's the military? Far away. That's right. I'm sure on some of the bases, the drug smugglers who, you know, work for the wealthy are still bringing in drugs and dumping them on the streets so Americans can keep ODing and totally be disillusioned and all of that stuff. Because remember, they got caught dealing drugs. Again, those drugs in South America, that was, that came from the United States, the CIA, and the early days when they took all those Nazi scientists and sent them to South America and had them create all those drug labs all over South America so that they could continue the drug trade closer to home. And then you decimate their economies, and the only thing they got left is drugs. Venezuela had oil for a while, but you've seen, the conflict, death of Chavez, a lot of other things that was happening. And yeah, you want to call them a narco state, but you need to know how it all started. I told you about the India Trading Company, and this was done by the wealthy from the UK and Europe, and the wealthy here in the United States, where they had a warehouse 7 stories high with balls, soccer ball size opium balls. And this thing was, like 2 blocks long, this warehouse. China knows. That's why China hates drugs. A lot of these countries, they don't like drugs because they know that drugs have been used as a weapon against the population to break down the government. So that's why you're seeing a lot of that stuff. So we saw Trump's report card. So let's talk about a little bit more of this, okay? And again, you create shock value by executing Renee Good and Alex Preddy. The interesting thing is that these right-wing guys, crazy nuts, will swear that Democrats hate democracy, yet all of the rights that we've gotten are pretty much from Democrats. And that's pretty big. Equal rights, that was tied into it. The changing of labor laws and unions, that's all tied into it. So the Democrats are for civil rights and human rights. And then the opposition is that you have the Republicans who are for quite the opposite, even though they can benefit from all the things that, as they call it, the left has been pushing for. I'm not saying that the left is perfect. That's not what I said. But the right looks so crooked. And I can't believe that people can stay so vexed for so long and still think they're doing the right thing. You just lost all of your medical. They're going after everybody for fraud because he was accused of fraud, so everybody else has to be fraudulent. But it's an excuse to freeze up the money, and you're going to lose your insurance because there's no care providers because they're freezing up the money. Nobody can make any money. So they're going to overload the hospitals, and then they're going to accuse them of fraud, and then your whole medical system, they're going to break down everything. That's what they're doing because they want total chaos. Think about what I'm saying. They're going to break it all down. It's not just tearing it or burning. I hear these guys, burn it all down. And you're going to replace it with what? What are you going to do? Nobody has, these guys that say that never have a solution. Because all they are is angry. They have no vision. That's why they love it when you lie to them. They haven't put anything out there that's an alternative. You never hear alternatives. They think of alternatives after they've already torn up stuff. And that's how you know they're barbarians and they're counterintuitive. Okay? But let's listen to a little bit more racism in the White House.
There's also this piece that Liz reported on in a recent interview the president gave, articulating his views on the civil rights movement, which was the Black-led equal rights push to end legal discrimination and segregation in this country. He said it hurt a lot of people and ended in reverse discrimination. What does that tell you about where these ideas are coming from and how they're making their way to the president of the United States?
Yeah, I think I think we're seeing several different things in that statement. I think one of the things we're seeing is an unedited version of a belief system that, as possibly always been there. It's not just new advisors, suggesting something. It is a belief that white men are losing ground and that something has to be done to restore male standards, as we heard the Secretary of Defense say recently to the military, or Mark Zuckerberg, that what we really need is masculine energy in the corporate sector, right? So these kind of gloves are off, right? There's no more hiding those kinds of statements. And I think President Trump is an example of someone who has always believed that kind of thing and is now feeling more emboldened or empowered to say it.
You know, these are ideas, as you've noted and tracked, they've long been simmering below the surface. Now they're sort of out in the open. You also cited a number of other big things that are going on the planet right now. And as a result of U.S. policy, when you see historically these kinds of campaigns, propaganda pushes, is it because they're trying to get a message out or as a distraction from something else?
It's both. So one of the things we see is that one of the very first things undemocratic leaders do is to try to confuse people, to say there's alternative facts. There are other ways of seeing the world, to undermine journalism, the media, academics, expertise, scientists, to basically say this isn't true, whether that's about vaccines or about what we saw in a video with who shot and why a woman who was protesting. So that kind of confusion is what Hannah Arendt said about the Nazis, that when you get people to stop knowing what's true and false, it's very easy for them to stop knowing what's right and wrong. And so I think that's one of the first things we see, is that confuse, and then flood the zone with a lot of different things happening all at once.
Morons, bigots, and hypocrites. They're running the country. Morons, bigots, and hypocrites. They are running the country. And nothing good is going to come from this. We need to keep rising up. Alex Preddy sacrificed his life. He sacrificed his life so that we could have democracy. He didn't do anything. There's no justifiable excuse for killing Alex Preddy, killing Renee Good. And even when you see that Sonia Massey shooting, come on. And that's the problem. They have been killing black people and Mexicans, Hispanic, Latinos, and getting away with it right in front of our faces, executing them. And as Malcolm X says, the chicken has now come home to roost, because now it doesn't matter what color you are. If they can create spectacle and make an example, they want everyone afraid. And we know how that all goes down. All right? So remember, all the racist language, all the dog whistles, racist marketing, Civil War. Here's more about Civil War.
Right-wing groups like the Proud Boys seek to build a white nation. As the House Select Committee held its first public hearing on the January 6, 2021 insurrection, far-right groups, including the Proud Boys and the Oath Keepers, were a prominent topic of discussion. At the same time, both of those groups' leaders have faced criminal charges of seditious conspiracy. They are alleged to have worked together to oppose by force the authority of the government of the United States. Those charges can be difficult to prove in court. But regardless of the outcome of any prosecution that alleges these groups work to overthrow the government, our research has shown that the more committed members of these and other extreme right-wing groups believe that the U.S. government, as currently constituted, is illegitimate and should be overthrown and replaced with one that is based on white supremacy. Violent racism. Proud Boys have identified themselves as Western chauvinists who focus on opposing political correctness and white guilt. But these claims have generally been seen as a cover for deeper racist and anti-Semitic sentiments. For some Proud Boys members, this group served as a stepping stone to more extreme groups, such as the Base. Like any street gang, the Proud Boys, as a national group, is made up of semi-autonomous chapters of varying numbers and abilities. They are in different degrees of contact and coordination with other chapters. It's not clear the level of interest or capability that most members have in actually following through with overthrowing the government. Oath Keepers is an anti-government group that calls itself a militia focused on defending the Constitution and fighting tyranny. Former Oath Keepers spokesman Jason Van Tatenhove stated that the group is actually selling the revolution, meaning that the group is pushing conspiracy theories and propaganda to facilitate confrontations with federal law enforcement. While members of the Proud Boys have concentrated their confrontations on anti-fascists or other protesters, Oath Keepers have participated in several armed standoffs against the government. In 2014, the Oath Keepers joined an armed standoff between far-right patriot groups in Nevada on behalf of Cliven Bundy. In 2015, Oath Keepers showed up heavily armed in Ferguson, Missouri, during protests over the killing of Michael Brown. And in 2016, Oath Keepers were present at the armed takeover of the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge in Oregon. It's a challenging road because historically, prosecutions of seditious conspiracy charges succeeded against militant Islamist or Marxist groups. However, prosecuting far-right groups has tended to be significantly more challenging. In 1988, Louis Beam, a figurehead in the White Power movement, and 13 white supremacists from groups such as the Aryan Brotherhood and the Ku Klux Klan were acquitted of conspiring to kill a federal judge and an FBI agent and plotting to overthrow the federal government to establish an all-white nation in the Pacific Northwest. In 2012, charges of seditious conspiracy against members of Hootery, a militant far-right Christian nationalist group, were dismissed after the judge concluded the government had not proved there was an actual conspiracy. But it is clear from the charges stemming from the January 6th insurrection, involving hundreds of alleged participants, that police and prosecutors are seriously taking the threat of violent action by Proud Boys, Oath Keepers, and other far-right groups against individuals, organizations, and local and national governments. This article was published by The Conversation on June 9, 2022, written by Matthew Vlasic, Associate Professor of Criminology and Criminal Justice, and Shannon Reed, Associate Professor of Criminal Justice and Criminology. I'm Zoe Pearl for the Fourth Writer Network.
All of those guys have jobs or getting jobs. They're out of jail, and now they're ICE. Why, you see the bear spray. Remember bear spray? Kept spraying it at law enforcement at the Capitol. Right? Bear spray. All right, as I said, we're going to get into Alex Preddy. This is very important. And so I'm going to show you some stuff on Alex Preddy, and I'm going to show you a bunch of clips, actually. Some are going to be long, some are going to be short, but you really need to see what happened. He was executed by ICE, okay? Understand that. Alex Preddy was executed by ICE. I'm going to show you this.
It was a tweet by the Department of Homeland Security showing a firearm on what appears to be the seat of a car. And the tweet reads, an individual approached U.S. Border Patrol officers with a 9mm semi-automatic handgun seen here. You see the picture behind it there. This looks like a situation where an individual wanted to do maximum damage and massacre law enforcement. Now we have this new angle of the video that's just been cleared by CNN, and it shows the lead up to this deadly altercation. This is what I want you to take a look at. Of course, this is disturbing video. Let's take some time though and watch this together. Some things to note. As it begins, you see Preddy out there in the middle of the street. He shows up right in this area here. You start seeing him, and he is at one point using his camera. There he is, right there, and he's pointing to traffic, sort of waving traffic through. At some moment here, you see that law enforcement approaches him, and he backs away as they start moving up on him. He is not trying to move toward them. He's backing away. Then you're going to see one of these officers approach a woman near him and really forcefully shove her to the ground right there. And Preddy starts rushing over toward her. Now, they're both getting pepper sprayed at this point. He gets grabbed, and he's taken over to the ground here. I'll point out this is about 15 seconds from when officers turned to him. He's now on the ground. They are on top of him. The officers are all around. He does not appear to have a weapon in his hand. He doesn't brandish anything. He doesn't seem to do anything. And then all of a sudden you see one agent in the middle there. Look, he turns away, and that's when the shooting begins. One shot followed by, in our analysis, 9 other shots there.
Okay, so that's one angle that you can look at. And you saw the rhetoric that's coming from the White House, that's coming from, you know, from Homeland and et cetera, et cetera. They care not about the execution. Matter of fact, that's probably part of their plan. And you already know, you heard them singing about how they love being Nazis and they're going to have their homeland. And they're letting you know that the Fourth Reich is here. Trump said something and no one asked him. All these great journalists, mainstream media, Trump said, you're not going to be able to stop what's coming. This is what he's talking about. And nobody asked him, well, what's coming? I was shocked by that. Because I would be like, whoa, what's coming? And I know he would have gave some BS answer, but they didn't even try. So I put mainstream media in the category as being compromised as well. Americans, man, better wake up. The grift is on, but not only that, they're stealing your democracy. They're cutting your health care. It sounds overly hyperbolic here, but they are going to cut down the general population. That's why they don't want anybody to have medicine. They want everybody to die off. Elon Musk got it all figured out. We're going to use robots. And then whoever wants to be their subject will be the remaining people. It is on. The doomsday clock says 89 seconds midnight. That's the doomsday clock. So for all you guys who are, you know, science is your religion, you know what that means. Biblically, you can see how the doomsday clock and Revelations seem to be matching up, if you know your Bible. I'm going to do another show on the doomsday clock. That's going to be interesting. Okay? So, I wanted you to see this, and I'm going to play a short one, which is 10 shots, because there were 10 shots fired. Now, you already had the guy on the ground, bent over, you took his weapon, and then you yelled gun, and then the guy just steps into it and just fires like 5 shots, 6 shots. So at that point, he's got so many holes in him, you know he's gone. Then when he laid flat on his back, another guy walked over and just pop, 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 to make sure that, well, if he wasn't dead, he is now. Alex Preddy was executed. So listen to the shots here.
9 a.m. on Saturday morning, gunshots ring out across a stretch of the Whittier neighborhood of South Minneapolis known as Eat Street. Video of the homicide began to circulate across social media.
I just wanted you to hear the shots. Now that you heard the shots, you want to watch this. This is play-by-play, multiple angles. And I want you to pay attention to the real key moment when Mr. Preddy, laying in the street, bleeding out, as they all walked away and just left his body on the cold ground as if it had no value. And then one guy walks over and going, are you sure he's dead? That's what it looked like. And he fired about 5 more rounds into Mr. Preddy. And nobody is talking about how that went down, and it was in plain sight. It'll probably happen really quick on this one, but you need to watch this. He was laying flat out on his back, and they fired about 5 more shots into him. He was not supposed to live, according to ICE. Pretty obvious.
Federal immigration officers fatally shot a man Saturday in Minneapolis. He was an ICU nurse who worked at a local veteran affairs hospital, another controversial killing by U.S. immigration agents, and the second U.S. citizen killed this month. CNN analyzed cell phone footage from multiple angles. Taken together, they appear at odds with the Department of Homeland Security's initial claims about the lead-up to officers firing on Alex Preddy. Around 9 a.m. Central, video captures two people approaching a federal immigration officer in front of an unidentified vehicle. The sound of whistles is blaring in the background. Alex Preddy enters the frame here. He's filming an officer interacting with protesters and waving a car through. 15 seconds later, Preddy yells,
"Hey, do not push them into the traffic!"
In their statement, DHS said that an individual approached officers with, quote, a 9mm semi-automatic handgun. This video seems to show officers approaching Preddy instead of the other way around. We'll see later that Preddy does appear to have had a gun in his waistband, but this video shows he didn't have a gun in his hand, only a phone. Video from this white car shows an up-close angle of a federal immigration officer pushing one protester. Then, 3 seconds later, he pushes Preddy, and then as the camera comes into focus, you see the same federal officer push a third protester with the orange backpack. Preddy raises his hand and turns away, just as the officer sprays him with a chemical irritant. You see Preddy and the other protester trying to help the person with the orange backpack. You can see here an officer pulling Preddy off of this person. 3 more officers join, and then 2 more. Preddy is on the ground under them. One officer in a tan beanie can be seen repeatedly striking Preddy's head with a metal can. You can see an officer in a gray jacket walk into the frame. There isn't a gun in his hand. Seconds later, officers shout. The officer removes a gun from Preddy's belt. The officer steps away from the scene carrying a firearm, seen here in his right hand. Then, gunfire. At least 10 shots ring out. We looked back at the scene from different angles and slowed down the footage. This officer, wearing a black beanie, can be seen drawing his firearm and pointing it in Preddy's direction. We can't see his gun when the first shot is fired, but we can see that this officer fired the second shot. In this angle, you see a second officer also had his gun drawn, and here, he's pointing his weapon at Preddy as we hear gunshots, though it isn't clear if he's the one firing.
What the Did they kill that guy?
Preddy collapses onto the ground as the officers scatter backwards from around him. The same agent in the black beanie from earlier can be seen firing 5 final shots as Preddy lies there, motionless. Nobody approached his body for 24 seconds. When officers do return to Preddy, they appear to begin searching his body.
Okay, so there are so many angles, but because the cameras are moving really fast and they were editing, again, the thing that sticks out the most was that after he was laying on his back and he's bleeding out, ICE walked over and emptied more bullets into Alex Preddy. He was not going to survive this. They knew they were going to kill him from Jump Street. Now here's the other thing. Alex Preddy died trying to protect 2 women. They sprayed him in the face. He never pulled his weapon. He had all the opportunity to pull his weapon. He never pulled his weapon. Yet, these killers pulled their weapons and shot him when he was already subdued. They're beating him in the head with a can. And they actually attack him when he's trying to help 2 women. He's not even dealing with them. He only turns to keep them from spraying him in the face. And they're grabbing him. So yes, he was targeted for execution. He was executed. Donald Trump has unleashed a civil war on America. They're not telling you the truth. Media, they're all trying to downplay it. Forget midterms. Donald Trump's not interested in midterms. He's interested in all of it. He's going after everybody and everything he considers his enemy. Anybody who didn't vote for him. Anyone who's protesting. Anyone who is reporting things that he doesn't find favorable. He's going after everyone and everybody because that's who he is. That's what he is. He is chaos. He's absolute chaos. I don't think he's going to last long because they always kill their own. But that's neither here nor there, because the reality is what's coming after him will be far worse because he's setting the tone. America can't afford that. So I had to play that for you. So I got this other thing you need to see, which is really interesting. Oh yeah, attention, morons, bigots, and hypocrites. Trump is hiring.
From the U.S. Department of Labor, a message. One homeland, one people, one heritage. Remember who you are, American. It's a video that appears to be part of a campaign now ramping up to sell the administration's efforts to the American people. For example, calling on potential ICE recruits to, quote, defend the homeland from outsiders while featuring heroic images of white men, often from a bygone era. Then there's this tweet from Friday, an ICE recruitment ad featuring the turn of phrase, "We'll have our home again," plastered over an image of a man on horseback and a stealth bomber flying in the distance. That's a reference to the song "We'll Have Our Home Again," a white supremacist anthem favored by the Proud Boys.
Oh my God, we'll have our home again. By God, we'll have our home.
Another image tells supporters to, quote, trust the plan, the slogan of the right-wing conspiracy theory known as QAnon, which posits there's a global cabal of pedophiles and deep state actors trafficking children, and that Trump is fighting it. It's also a movement heavily involved in the insurrection on January 6, 2021. Last week, the Trump administration published a new website rewriting that history to blame Democrats for security failures that day and to justify the president's pardoning of more than 1,500 defendants. Weighing in on another era, last week President Trump also sat for a lengthy interview with the New York Times. He was asked about the civil rights movement and told reporters that while the landmark legislation did some good things, he said, quote, it also hurt a lot of people that deserve to go to a college or deserve to get a job were unable to get a job. So it was a reverse discrimination. A day later, Trump supporter and billionaire Elon Musk wrote 100 above this message on X, which read in part, quote, if white men become a minority, we will be slaughtered. White solidarity is the only way to survive. That's known as the Great Replacement Theory, popular in white nationalist circles that falsely claims the white population is being intentionally replaced by non-whites. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Liz Landers.
Yeah. So listen to the language they're using. Hire all these undesirables. And they're only undesirables because of the things that they do and these fake, false ideologies. What did you see his apartheid buddy, right? You saw his apartheid buddy. The media should be trashing SpaceX, should be trashing Tesla, just because this guy is here to disrupt your democracy. But instead, everybody wants to worship the money. Money they're never going to get. This is not going to work. You can't be on both sides of the fence. These guys are destructive. And, you know, it's like giving a 3-year-old a machine gun. Chances are he's going to spray everybody in the room are probably about 100%. And that's the way it is with these guys. They are so psychologically unstable that the only thing they can focus on is destruction and getting everybody else dumb enough to do their work for them and to make them look good. Because again, it's all about spectacle. They're going to trash it all. That's what they're doing. Oh, and speaking of his buddy, you saw what he had to say. Let's do a little bit more on Elon Musk, Mr. Apartheid, coming here to America to destroy our democracy so that he can continue to grift. Couldn't do white supremacy quite the way he wanted in South Africa, so he came here. And folks are really dumb enough to throw away their democracy because the only thing they know how to do is feel sorry for themselves and hate.
He's not part of the administration technically, but to have Elon Musk openly retweeting white nationalist language, why is that significant?
Well, this kind of white nationalist language, when it's conspiratorial, it's been linked to terrorist attacks in Pittsburgh, in El Paso, in Buffalo. I mean, that was the motivating in Christchurch, New Zealand, in Oslo, Norway. I mean, hundreds of people have died because of that conspiracy theory, because people believe there is a dire threat posed by multicultural societies, and that someone is orchestrating it to make white people disappear. And so that is dangerous.
I really don't like playing this much tape, but you got to hear it from more than just me, okay? You're not being told the truth. And our democracy is under attack by all these billionaires, all of them. They've already pretty much written off America. That's why everything looks crazy and Trump keeps lying to you about how things really are. That's why he didn't want you to have unemployment figures. He wanted to just say whatever it is. He doesn't, he wants his own Fed so that he can adjust it like a bad UHF television. Older people know UHF. Antennas, the whole thing, man. Rabbit ears. That's how he's doing everything. By the seat of his pants. Unfortunately, he's got holes in his seat. He cares not about this country. He only cares about himself. And the sad thing is, he's got to be self-loathing because everything he touches, he destroys. And that's what he's doing to America. I'm going to do one more thing for you. One more thing, and we're going to call it a day. This is about the dog whistles. Listen up.
For more context on what some of these images and posts mean and why the Trump administration is using them, we turn now to Cynthia Miller-Idris, director of the Polarization and Extremism Research Innovation Lab at American University. Welcome back. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
So we've seen some of these messages before, but this ramping up of their delivery and from multiple official administration accounts, what does all of that signal to you at this point, nearly 1 year into this administration?
Yeah, it does feel like a turning point in the propaganda campaign, if you will, in the shift to try to change people's minds about what's happening. I think they feel we're at a moment when ICE has a 57% disapproval rating, I heard today, where it's the second least liked federal agency, only after the IRS. And so, we have a moment when the American public is seeing what's happening, are watching abuses, are watching cell phone video, especially the recent murder of a protester. That, I think, is why we're seeing this kind of campaign to try to position what ICE is doing as in the public interest, as safety, and of course with a lot of dog whistles, or sometimes not even dog whistles, making racist and conspiratorial claims about what would happen if they don't do it.
Okay, so that's pretty much it. I don't have a whole lot to say except for one thing. We need to fight for our democracy if we want it. Everything's compromised. Congress, Senate, the executive branch, the Supreme Court, some of the lower courts. It's all compromised. Right now, Americans are killing each other because Trump has declared a civil war. He's wagging the dog on a couple of different fronts, Venezuela and Iran, keeping the military away from the United States to avoid a coup. In the meantime, he's aggressively attacking everything, tying up the courts. He already made it so that states can't file suits together. Courts helped him with that, which means that it'd take forever to hear cases because they just don't have time. They're watching it. They know exactly what he's doing. Everything is compromised here. They have declared civil war. They're cutting off your benefits. Pretty soon they will declare martial law. This is everything that they're going for. Right now we're under siege. They have seized the United States, and it's only going to get worse. They're setting up internment camps, not for the immigrants, for all the people that he thinks against him or against what they're trying to do. He is not the sole actor in this. He is not even the main power, but he's willing to take the credit like Nebuchadnezzar. We already know what happened to him. Okay? He's chaos. He's a Christmas present to the wealthy who've been trying to do this. I have so much more to say. I'm Michael P. America. Thank you for listening. And I got to tell you, we're in this together. America's got to make the decision. Got to make the decision. Do you want your democracy? And everybody's got to be on the streets. Got to be organized. You need 100,000 plus in your major cities. Your smaller cities, you got to get out as many as you can. Try to get out at least a third. Everywhere, people have to start protesting. Stop paying these companies that are against American democracy, against your interests. Stop giving them your money. Start boycotting. We got to do whatever it takes to save our democracy, because we are in the 24th hour. And they're already executing people and lying about it and trying to get you to repeat the lie so that you accept what they're going to hand down. They also went into Congress and the Senate trying to get rid of NGOs, meaning that you can't have organizations that protect your civil liberties or civil rights. Oh yeah, they put that in there. They proposed that. So you better watch your politicians. Because if they do that, 5 or 6 people gather and they're going to put you in jail. They're trying to change the law so that they can jail Americans who believe in the Constitution. A lot of things they're doing are totally unconstitutional. Nobody is doing anything about it except for the people. This is Michael P. America. Rise up. Now is the time or lose it all.